move on, Keith, and talk about Everton. Now, it seems to be that Farhad Moshiri has pulled the plug potentially on that 777 takeover that we've discussed for so many weeks and months. What are your thoughts around that news?
Well, again, the story that keeps on running, it's incredible. Yes, it does appear that we saw last week with 777 that they called in restructuring experts. We saw that Josh Wander and Steve Pascoe from 777 were removed from their football board at 777. We saw the Bonza airline in Australia go bust. So we saw a lot of things all at the same time that apparently Moshiri was having face-to-face talks with 777 in London. It then ended with an announcement from Moshiri that he no longer felt he could go forward with them and was prepared to listen to other potential buyers. That's a big step. And then the next bit of news, I think, came on Thursday or Friday that another 8 million had arrived from 777 to Everton. And that seemed at odds to what had been going on and what was in the media. So I think what really happened with that 8 million is that it may have been already in escrow and being held as part of the agreement with 777. I think also now Everton are probably about to receive the first initial tranche of next year's TV payments. So I think their cash flow situation may not be quite as urgent as it may have been if those sort of monies had not arrived. So I think it's now a case of all the creditors at Everton working together to try and get a restructuring of the debt in some way, which I hope they're doing right now. Potentially another group coming in to either replace 777 and take them out, if you like, by repaying their debt, which 777 I'm sure would love at this stage, and somebody to work with, possibly with MSP, to try and work a way through this. But the name of the game is about the debt restructuring and making sure that the stadium is finished and that the club has enough money to go forward to get through this last season at Goodison. And we'll see how that shapes out. But there's got to be some pretty heavy discussions going on right now as that happens. But I do hear there's a number of names being floated as potential suitors around there, all very credible. So let's hope that's really happening and there's a way through this. There are some sensible heads there with rights and media funding, and I think with MSP. So there should be a way through this. I really believe it.
So, Keith, do you think the club are fighting against the clock then to find new owners? Or actually, are you confident that if 777 doesn't happen, that it will be fairly soon, not necessarily instantaneous, but over the next few weeks and months, that you will have new owners at Everton?
I think when all these investors start looking at the reality of the situation is that they will damage themselves a lot more if the situation gets worse for the club. And they have a chance not only of retrieving the position they've got, but also possibly enhancing it if they can keep the club going up and doing well. Certainly getting the safety of Premiership again next season was a key factor, and that will help a lot in these discussions because you can now plan a year ahead with certainty of revenues. So it's going to be an interesting discussion. Of course, everybody will think that they may be prepared to take a haircut, as they would call it, but they don't want to get scalped. And that's the whole idea. But I think everybody's common sense should prevail that there is potentially a great asset here with a great stadium and a club with Premier League status, with a great heritage and history, a great fan base. And so it's there's not many of those around. And so let's hope that cool heads can prevail and we can get this done over this couple of weeks.
Well, Keith, saying that, if the 777 takeover really doesn't happen, is there any concern at all from the club's perspective they might struggle to cover daily costs or stadium fees? Or actually, do you think that Moshiri is likely to cover those in the meantime?
Difficult to say. He didn't give his letter of comfort in the recent accounts for the club. Normally, an owner would give that sort of letter of comfort. It's nothing that drastic, but I think that, as I say, the TV money is already starting to flow. So the first tranche of that is coming in. So the short term is looked after. But I do think it would help if there was another another new equity partner coming in, either to replace 777, take out MSP, or what a combination of both. And they could also then be sure, because they'd have to get through Premier League approval. And so they'd want to see the money for the stadium being finished and enough money to get through the season. So I think those things are all there, but they seem doable in terms of the amounts that I'm looking at right now. So I still believe that everybody's common sense should prevail and it should work out for the club.
I mean, Keith, we know MSP could potentially be involved, like we've sort of discussed, if the ownership does then collapse. Is that worrying, given that they don't seem to be keen on owning the club? Or actually, do you think that they might be a good stopgap potentially?
It does seem that they prefer to be probably short-term holders of control in some way. They're very good operators. They've got a very good history in terms of their sports management in the States. I've dealt with them previously on another transaction about a club in Spain, so I've had a limited experience with them, but still they were very professional and very clear thinking about the way they wanted to go forward. I think they may well see it that they step in for perhaps this next season, and then with the new stadium opening up the season after, they may be able to sell at a better price, because obviously those sort of hurdles will be overcome and the new stadium will be open, new revenue streams happening. So they may see that as the best play for them. There's no doubt they've got the resources, I think, to do this. And what's always been interesting is that Francis Najafi, who is the head of MSP, is actually another Iranian and was apparently born in the same village as Moshiri. So that's an interesting little small connection there.